at 6 a.m. in the morning, I decided to take a neurological cocktail. I decided to take some ketamine, some acid, and some mushrooms. And I'm sharing this because my hope is that it will prevent others from losing their lives, taking their lives.
True compassion, like, only begins, like, only can arise from experience, from pain, you know? Hey, Amrital, how is it going?
It's going well, thank you, brother.
So, this is Tielo from Tepoztlan, Mexico, reaching out in my human form to Amrital, right?
Yes, it's Amrit Lal,
Amritlal.
Amrit Lal.
Amritlal. All right.
Thank you,
Cool.
namaste.
So, where you at?
I'm in Los Gatos, California, which is a very spiritual town south of San Francisco and in Silicon Valley near Santa Cruz and San Jose,
All right.
California.
Cool. I plan to produce my film in California. See if we can hang out there. But in the
Thank you.
meantime,
Yes.
so would you like to share how we met?
Yes, actually, I am. I'm happy to do that. It's actually, yeah, so it's an interesting story. I was attracted to this shop in Tepoztlan because I recognized the symbol. I saw the symbol of the triangle and the square, and I realized that I had to go to this shop. And before I arrived, it was like there was this energy building up in me, and I was in the main street with a friend of mine, and I was just like, I need something. I'm not sure what. And so I stopped in the chocolate. I stopped in the chocolate shop and was like, I don't want sugar. And then I went through the food area and I was like, I don't want to eat anything unhealthy. Like I need something for my soul. I need something for my soul, but I don't want any of these cravings. And so I was like, I don't know what it is. So I just started walking. And then I saw the shop again, but this time the shop was open. So I walk in and that's when I see your friend Danya.
Okay.
And as soon as I saw her, we had a connection. And I was like, do you sell rape, which is a spiritual medicine? And she was like, yeah, I do. And it was such a random item to have. And then that's when we met. And you know, your honesty, your authenticity was very it was a clear mirror. And and I'm still getting used to like having that, to being in my heart and not in my head, and being open and true. Um, because it's being in our heart is not quite a familiar feeling where I am in California. And so it's like this part of the reconditioning, the unraveling of truth, coming back into the heart, back into the place of radiance. And I remember we were talking, and you had these shoes on, which I mentioned. You had these shoes on, which had um, a lion and a lion's mane. And immediately I looked at your shoes, and I was given a vision of Jesus Christ, and was brought back to some of the work I've been doing with the plant medicine and going through my healing process. And the energy of being with Jesus in the astral and seeing him as you know, as both the Lamb of God, but also the fire of the Kundalini, the he who is able to transform in order to serve into anything he needs. And I was rushed. I felt that feeling, and I knew that I could trust you. I knew that we were be our meeting was in alignment with my spiritual service, my spiritual evolution, and that I could let down my guard, and I could begin this process of finally just being me in the world and learning how to be myself with my brother and realize that this was a safe connection to establish. So
All right, cool. Yeah, it felt really flow, right? I remember I liked you guys. What's the name of your friend?
my friend, her name is Lisa Marie Cagliostro.
Lisa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I liked them both right away, and we started talking and everything. And it's funny that you speak about the vision of Jesus because I have also a really, I think, strong connection because I don't consider myself religious, but it was, I think, on 2017 or 2018 that I took a ceremony of ayahuasca. And I was in this writing process that I've been writing the film for 7 years now. I'm done, but it took me 7 years. So 5 years ago, I was in this plant medicine that actually my third ayahuasca ceremony, I asked, what do I need to do with my life? And I get it that I needed to make a documentary about love. So I left music. I went with my dad and my brother, that I businessmen. So I told them, I'm leaving music. I'm gonna go and make a documentary about love. And they were like, "Oh, we lost him." So then I began my journey about research. But another ceremony of ayahuasca, I was I was listening to these thoughts, like evil thoughts inside my mind that, oh, you're not worthy. Nobody will care about your film, that you're a loser. And I was, oh, yeah. And I began to cry and cry. And I just asked, what is ego? Like, I think I have a lot, but I don't know exactly what it is. And then I stopped crying. And then I straight up and I saw the sun, a human heart, and the nucleus of the earth. And from the nucleus from the human heart appeared like Jesus in 4000K definition, like. And at that point, at my research, I had left out any gods or deities or archetypes. But when I had that vision, I thought, like, dude, this guy is real. This is more real than anything I've met in my physical dimension. So I understood, and he just looked at me, with this serenity and compassion and equanimity, just serene. And I understood that the most simple thing about ego is the availability of the same substance to split to experience life. Like, I felt like the same energy in our hearts was the same energy of the sun and the nucleus of the earth, but in different manifestation. And I also understood that as the heart of the solar system and the heart of the earth, they cannot share all the energy outwards because they will be left with nothing to share. And we can follow the same example that first, like, have this energy within and then share it to all without judgment. The sun doesn't judge if you're poor or rich. You just shine. So I understood that in order for you we cannot give all of our love to something or to someone because we uh, leave our ability to shine. We have to keep the energy, inside and then shine from there, because we're producing this energy from within and just sharing it without losing it, you know? And from that point on, I thought, like, I've been like seeing images of Jesus, and I don't see him like in a Catholic or Christian version, but this kind of archetype energy that is in a higher dimension, that exists, whether we can see him or not. So it's funny that my shoes, like, led you to this Jesus vision. So then how can you tell your story about your scar, please? Because that was one of the most, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually and I'm sharing this because my hope is that it will prevent others from losing their lives, taking their lives. It will support others in speaking their truth. Um, that it'll accelerate the spiritual evolution of others like me who now feel comfortable to be who they are. And then I also feel that sharing my story with you is going to allow more of my truth to be realized by me, to allow me to hold more of my soul. Um, so this scar you see, and I'll stand up
Yeah, you
so
have
the
to stand up.
camera gets it.
Yes, 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 yes.
Gets this here. So I on September 5th, 2019,
Yes.
I put a knife here.
September
I
what?
put
Can
a
you
knife.
repeat the date?
Oh, yeah. September 5th, 2019.
Okay.
I plunged a knife into my chest and I missed my heart by about a millimeter. It was a miracle. And it's actually just a story leading up to that that's really impressive. But rather than going back too far, I'll start with that day and then I'll go
Yeah,
back
why
until
how
I'll
did
start
you
with the very
wake
day.
up? Where did you
Okay,
wake up?
and I won't go too far back, so I'll start with that very day. That very day at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I'll tell you why. But first, I'll tell you what I did. I decided to take a neurological cocktail. I decided to take some ketamine, some acid, and some mushrooms.
Whoa.
Why? Why? Well, I wanted to know. I was having experiences that I couldn't explain. I couldn't tell my family about. I couldn't tell my friends about. I couldn't um, fully digest it for a couple of years. And I just wanted to get to the other side. I knew that I was becoming someone else. I knew that I was becoming something else. I knew that I wasn't who I thought I was. And that there was something outside of me limiting me, something outside of me controlling me. I just wanted to get to the other side so that I could come into that place where I could be my full self, my higher self, where I could be in a place of support. And so I took this cocktail, and whenever, and so even before this day, I was experimenting with ketamine, and it was helping my with my depression. And so for a couple of years, I was astral projecting. I was beginning to see more and more into the spiritual realms. Um, I was having experiences with fairies and other types of interdimensional, energetic, plasmic um, entities, and I just like wanted to have a clearer perception of what was real, what was true, what was my mind capable of doing, and so that, and I was also beginning to figure out some other things. I was beginning to figure out. So I received my degree from Boston University in theoretical mathematics, and I also studied mechanical engineering for 2 years. So I had a very scientific perspective on the neurological chemicals of the mind and frequencies and mind control manipulation. And I was just like, I'm gonna just solve this problem, even if I blow myself up, and I'm just gonna like put it out there so people know. And I realized that that doesn't even matter. But so so that day I decided to take this cocktail and open my mind up all the way, and it worked. It actually worked, because leading up to that moment, I would take, yeah, up until that day, I would take some ketamine and I would meditate and I would open up portals. This day, it just happened. I raised my Shakti. I Shakti and had sort of that Shiva Shakti merge where your crown chakra opens, and I opened up a portal to the higher celestials, to the ancient realms. And it was like the sensation of home. I felt like I was finally there. And I couldn't hold it for more than like about 8 seconds when it collapsed. And this is about 6 o'clock in the morning. And when it collapsed, my entire world came crashing down. First, energetic pain just began rushing through my body. then paranoid thoughts, and then fears and worries. Um, I began to lose touch with reality. This lasted for hours and hours, and it gradually became worse and worse. Soon I was surrounded by dark spirits and dark entities. And at one point, a few hours later, I took off all my clothes because I was at this point I was paranoid about everything. I was paranoid about my cell phone. I was paranoid about, I don't know, everything. All paranoia was crashing down on me. So I ran outside. I was living in San Francisco in the Marina District, which was a very expensive, very nice area at the time. Um, well, before this happened, I was an investment executive for one of the largest financial insurance insurance companies in the world, and I ran outside completely naked, started to meditate, thinking that I was going to open up a portal and like go back home into the earth. It didn't happen. I'm sitting there. I was like, okay, this isn't working. Let me go back into my apartment. As soon as I go back into my apartment, it's all there waiting for me. All of the dark ones, the entities, and the voice. The voice was, just do it. Just take that knife. The only way you're going to know is if you do it, if you plunge the knife into your heart. And I wasn't going to do that. And so I filled my tub with cold ice water, dunked myself in. I had aluminum foil wrapped around my head. Nothing was working. I was surrounded everywhere I went in my apartment, every corner, there was more and more shadow figures coming at me. And I think about 6 hours went by. It's probably about noon now. And there's other information that I realized leading up to this point in regards to some of the entities feeding off the planet and the solar system. And I'd also realized my heart chakra connection, my connection to the sun, my connection to the universe. And I believe that I had just ruined everything for my family. I believe that like they were feeding through my heart and they were feeding off my family. And then all of a sudden I thought that my family was dying. One by one by one, I began to believe that the planet was going to end, that the world was going to end, that my mother was dying, my father was dying, my aunt was dying. Every single family member, my mind, these voices, these thoughts are telling me that my family was dying. And I just felt horrible. I felt like it was all my fault. I just let everyone down. But I wasn't going to, I went to the kitchen. The knife was in front of me. I wasn't going to do it. And then I heard my sister crying. And so I was the oldest in a very traumatic upbringing. And I raised my younger siblings and I heard my baby sister crying. I heard her in my head. And at that point, I didn't know what was real. But I did believe that if I did not put that knife into my chest and not to die, but to unleash. So for 2 years, I had been almost like that movie Pi. Have you seen the movie Pi where the
Yes.
scientist figures out, and also I'm a theoretical mathematician. So, I understand Pi and the golden mean and the Kundalini and the singularity and the breakthrough point into the next level of dimensions. I was that guy in Pi who just like had to who was just going so insane. He just had to do it. He had to lobotomize himself. And so at that moment, I just grabbed the knife and plunged it straight into my heart. And I knew I also knew that there are two entities. There are two levels. There was the dark and there was also the light guiding me. And I didn't have the strength. The darkness got to me, but ultimately the light protected me because I plunged the knife into my chest, and I felt absolutely no pain. I hit the bone. There's a scar on the bone. I
Could
felt
you
no
could you stand
pain.
up while you're telling me the story? It
Yeah,
hears well.
yeah. So this is where the knife actually went. Here,
Yeah, you can
this is
stand
where the
up.
knife.
Okay, so you
Yeah, so
put the knife right there.
right there, and then the doctors cut me open down to the belly button.
The doctors?
So after I plunged the knife into my chest, and at that moment, it finally ended. From the shock, it ended. And I was in that point. I didn't know what to believe, because I had also reached that point where I was having my God realization, and I had been having it for a couple of years leading up to this point. I was afraid to tell anybody. I didn't know that there are ashrams. I didn't know that there were retreats. I wasn't able to confide in people. And when we're afraid to confide in people, even the path that the universe provides for us, the universe always provides a path for us to rise into who we're meant to be. But when we're afraid to speak our truth, to express ourselves, that path remains blocked. And because of all the childhood trauma I had, because of all the abuse I had, it's taken me until now. It's been almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in a couple weeks. It's taken me up until now to finally be able to share my story, with the stranger. But again, like, I know that Jesus has shown me that, we're meant to connect and we're meant to do this. And that there's going to be a much greater effect from broadcasting this. And so I plunged a knife into my chest, deep, all the way. I felt no pain, but I knew, I was like,
what kind of knife was it? Like how?
it was a steak knife. It was about 6.5 inches, and maybe at most 2.5 inches thick, as you can see from the scar.
Yes. So
Well,
did
and
you
that's the thing too. So
hesitated
I
like
love
when you had the
my.
knife? Did you hesitated like?
No, I did. I just went straight in, and
And what did you
and
feel?
nothing, no pain, nothing. And then it hit me. I was like, they duped me. Like, they duped me. They got me. And so I didn't even know what to do. So I just stood there for a moment. I was like, all right. Well, then I pulled the knife out. I pulled the knife out, which I hear everyone's like, you're not supposed to pull the knife out. I pulled the knife out, and I just looked in. I looked at the hole. There was no blood. I was in a moment of belief. I was in a moment of true belief. And that belief, I realized that I was God. I realized that I was a child of God. I realized that I was the Matrix. I realized I was at that point, which we all want to get to, but I didn't get there naturally, which is why I couldn't sustain it. And 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 then and then my own doubt came in, and I began to punish myself. It's like, now you've really done it. And as soon as I began to punish myself, then the blood began coming out. And it took about 5 minutes for me to begin bleeding. And that's when I called the police, which wasn't the best experience, and went to the hospital. Um,
So did you call 911?
I
Like
did. I called 911. I
immediately?
told them the truth. I was very calm. I said, I did something horrible to myself. No one else did this. I took some psychedelics, and I think I said accidentally, because I didn't want to sound suicidal. I wasn't suicidal. I don't want to say delusional. I was breaking. We're all delusional. The illusion's here for everyone. Um, but I was, I didn't do anything. I didn't do something healthy. So I called the police and let them know that I put a knife into my chest. I needed an ambulance to get to the hospital. And when they came, of course, there's like cops show up with like shotguns and like, and it's terrifying. And when they throw me into the wagon, it was just the most horrifying experience, because they're like overpowering me, even though, like, here I am in need of help. I'm at that point I was making, like, close to $300,000 a year. I paid the government millions in tax dollars. You would think that I would be treated at least with some type of compassion,
Respect.
respect, and it was just like, nope. And so at that point, I still didn't know what was real, because leading up to this event, I had 2 ayahuasca sessions, which were like 2 or 3 days and 2 weekends. So I had 2 like weekend ceremonies. And even before the ayahuasca, because I had so much trauma, both in my lifetime, my past lifetimes, I was going through the spiritual process. Like, I was triggered. So I was actually triggered by the sun. So that's, as we know, the sun's changing, the earth's changing, the universe is changing. I was naturally activated, initiated, because I never would have sought the path. up until my spiritual awakening, I didn't believe in Jesus anymore. Like life was just so, my entire life was so, felt so painful that I was completely blocked from seeing and feeling the truth. And then one day everything just opened up and my body began to heal from diseases and allergies and depression and anxiety. And I was afraid to tell people. And I was afraid I couldn't accept who I was. And I couldn't, even though the voice inside was beautiful, I was still in denial. And and that's what eventually led to just me completely going ape shit. Um, and
All right, so you
but over that process, I'd also begun
you no, no,
healing
no, wait,
past
wait,
life
but
memories.
when you
Yes.
arrived to the hospital, uh,
So at the hospital, I went under and they cut me open all the way down to my belly button to see if there was any other damage. Stitched it up. There was no other damage. I didn't hit any major organs. It was it was a miracle that I was alive, and not only alive, it was a miracle that I was alive and not in critical condition. And and so I was in the hospital for over a week, and it was funny. It was like I wasn't alone. There are a lot of us. There are a lot of us light workers. There are a lot of us guardians. There are a lot of us bodhisattvas waking up to our truth, waking up to the hidden doctrine, the secret doctrine, the spiritual realms, and we just didn't know how to express it. And the institutions weren't prepared for us because their minds couldn't handle that level. And so when I left the hospital, I met with a team of psychiatrists, and when they began questioning me, I called them out. I could see that all of their questions were pointed, that they were triggered, and they weren't able to hold me any longer because it was clear that I was conscious, highly intelligent, more intelligent than the staff because I actually had the experience. I had the experience, I had the knowledge, I had the truth. I wasn't reading out of a textbook. I wasn't instilling a diagnosis. I was, in other words, I believe that a lot of people aren't crazy. I don't think anyone's crazy. I don't think there's any such thing as we have infinite numbers of diseases and pharmaceutical cures, but there's no such thing as disease. It's just harmony within the body. It's misalignment with the soul. And they were trying to classify me as something, and I clearly was able to show them where they were wrong, and so they let me return, but it still took some time, a long time, without the proper support because as a species we're evolving, as a species we're realizing what's really happening on the planet, who we truly are, why we're here, how the universe operates. Um, and so I've over the past since that event over the past 4 years I've surrendered to study, I've surrendered to service, I've surrendered to working with the kundalini, working with directly with the planetary forces, working with shamans and plant medicine, and also building here in Silicon Valley. I'm building a spiritual healing center where we use technologies as well as plant medicine and coaching and other therapies to support people through the process. um, but there is a point where you just have to begin surrendering to life and recognition that you are life, and life always has your best evolutionary interest in you. And so and uh and that's when, yeah,
awesome,
that's
dude.
when we met.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That I when I yeah that story, like really shocked me, and it's wonderful that you're sharing your story. Because you mentioned a lot of points, but one that I would like to comment on is like the psychedelic experience about healing trauma. I think that the psychedelic journey it's not always like a happy one. I've encountered many ayahuasca ceremonies that I thought that I was going to be crazy, like these realms of the mind, like these dark, really dark spaces. I remember one ceremony that I asked for my ancestors, like for my lineage, because that was the time where I was going to begin to write the film 7 years ago, like 6 years ago. And my dad was a little bit worried. So he told me, like, I was like, that I can promise you that I'm not crazy. Do you want me to speak to someone that you trust to just know that I'm not crazy? And he was like, okay, if you want to talk to my therapist, I would appreciate it. And I talked to her, and she told me, yeah, yeah, I've done ayahuasca as well. Yeah, ego, love. Yeah, yeah, you're on the right path. So no worries, your son is not crazy. And she told me to research 5 generations before me on my mother's side. She was like,
Mm.
you should look for some kind of, and I like synchronistically ended up to going with my aunt, my sister's mom, my mom's sister, my aunt. She's still alive at the moment. So I ended up with my mother died like 14 years ago. So 6 years ago, I went with her sister, my aunt, to drink ayahuasca together. It was like my third time, but that time, like my aunt didn't know what was going on, and she's very Catholic. And we went in the ceremony, and that was my intention, when I drank the brew. And I was like, okay, so I want to know about 5 generations before me. So my aunt was at the left. We began the ceremony, and then I ended up going like way, 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 way back. That I remembered, I was once a spider, and I felt the teeth and the and I saw myself like inside a spider, and it was really scary. And then I saw this creator and destroyer of dimensions, and it was dancing and looking at me, and I and it told me like, you will never understand me, even though if you write your film or your documentary, I am before everything. And I was like, it was like so amazing. But after that, I begin to feel all the pain in the world, like being inside a spider. I felt like this energy just like squeezed me like from the inside, and I started to and my throat, and I began to realize that I was feeling all the pain in the world. Like if all the pain I was leaving it in the inside, it was a hard moment. And I began to listen to a really hard noise inside my mind, like yeah, yeah. And I thought like, fuck, I hadn't drink that glass. Like it was too much. I I lost my mind. I will lose my mind. That there's no way. And then I like looked above, and I had no head. And the whole cosmos was giving birth like from my neck, and the galaxies and the planets, but I had no head. But all the planets were going, and I was like, fuck, this is too much. This is too much. I cannot stand it. So I went with the shaman, and he gave me some reiki to, just land it up. But my main point I wanted to share, with the listeners, because the psychedelic path, I think it's great. I think there's many medicines, could be MDMA, ketamine, ayahuasca, mushrooms. They're all cousins, but it's like I am all in to be psychonauts, to explore my psyche. I like to explore my psyche in silence, in dark room retreats, with substances, with art, with dance, experience. What am I, how far does the rabbit hole go? So, yeah, just to explore, but be safe, like, there are some bad trips that, in my experience, the bad trips had led me to the most learning. When it gets tough, like the lesson is like, I think that there's some things that it's really hard to let go, in our psyche, in our trauma, in our memory. And it's like something inside of us that wants to hold that thing. And psychedelics law, like, oh, let go, you just have to let go, everything, and just flow. But yeah, like, just tell people that there are some researchers, a lot of research, there are a lot of therapists like yourself that wants to make this center to help people with compassion, with not the economic side of just wanting to make money, because ayahuasca and mushrooms, it can be an industry. Like my dad went to Peru, and at the hotel lobby, they were like, "Oh, do you want ayahuasca? It's like $40." And he said, like, "Don't I have to do a diet?" And they were, "No, no, 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 no. Just give me the $40 and I give you ayahuasca." And it was like,
Mhm.
it's an industry. But we are here to, perhaps someone can listen to our stories and know that perhaps the psyche is infinite, but behind everything that changes, we are, you know, we are the stillness that embrace all changes. At the end, we are that, Vamasi. I am that, you know? Yeah. So in what part of the process are you about your healing center?
So now we had 2 years or I had 2 years of pure seva, bringing people through the entire. So it's a 4.5 hour process, eight different eight different technological therapies that each work on a different element or energetic center based on concepts, healing concepts from both traditional Chinese medicine as well as the Hindu Vedic healing philosophy or Hindu Vedic yogic philosophy. And so we spent 2 years bringing people through, clients through, to understand and assess how the process, how the healing worked, and how to work with people's intentions, how to work with the range, because healing occurs more easily in those who are aware and open to receive. To working with people who aren't as spiritually open to allowing their body to naturally heal, allowing the light of consciousness, the kundalini, to naturally rise up their spine, there are other arts forms to use in addition to technology. For example, working with intention, working with colors, working with frequencies, working with music and sound, and also as a healer. And when I say healer, as one who is aware of the power that we have to transform, and also the sources of disease, which are blockages within our body, energetic blockages, as well as misalignments with our higher path. um, by knowing this, by knowing, it's almost like the knowing of my flesh, of my cellular structure, affects the knowing. And that's the kundalini. When you think of the kundalini frequency, it's the knowing, the gnosis, that a healer is able to, just through the presence, bestow upon another person to help them heal. So after 2 years of me personally working through that process and also expanding my spiritual gifts, so I'm an interdimensional medium, a galactic. I travel, and the more that I serve, the more that I come into alignment with my higher self, the more that I am able to trust Christ and Krishna and Shiva and Divine Mother and the other benevolent deities of Christ Krishna consciousness that are here to support us through this shift. The more I'm able to surrender to to the gifts that manifest themselves through our form, and use that gift to help other people. So long story short, now the testing phase is over, and I'm beginning my campaign process. I'm beginning to build out how I'm going to communicate with people, how I'm going to introduce this idea to investors who I want to partner with, um, or who we not who I want to, but who, because it's all, once you begin to work with source and you begin to work with the magnetics of spiritual energy, the law of attraction, everything, or so much comes into alignment naturally. And that's the beauty, I feel, of rising and serving the rising and the light of consciousness, is the unfolding of the Dharma and the seamless. Although there is a lot of hard work, but there's a seamless flow that begins to open up and is quite rewarding. So that's where we're at now. We've moved into a new space where We have a building which is completely empty in Campbell, California, and um, the goal is to have 4 times as much technologies. So, as I mentioned, we have 8 different therapies which cover the 5 elementals: fire, earth, metal, wood, and I forget the last one right now.
The idea is to go bigger on
They go
what?
bigger because the shift is here, and the shift accelerates as we prepare for it. Because we are the shift. Everything that we do to support the unraveling of the organ system, the unraveling of Kali Yuga, and the rise of the light of consciousness that moves up the spine, um, everything that we do to support the body's full, or to support the soul's full embodiment and full healing process, allows the healing to occur, and allows us to bridge into that higher dimensional state of crystallization of global heart coherence. And so yeah, so we're stepping
Yes, I
in.
think that you're totally right. And for example, in Mexico, we have a saying. There's a song that it's in Spanish that it says, "Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar." It's like, you walker, there's no way. The way is made by walking. You know, like, so I've experienced that with the movie. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I get stressed when I think about the premiere. The projection of the total film, and I get stressed, but I have to come like in the moment, like, what can I do now? And it's like, if you go the way is, it's like you're going and make your own way. And if you keep going, like, it's synchronicity that you find people and the blah and blah blah blah, and the synchronicity starts going on because it's like the frequency. I just listened to this talk about Alan Watts. I'm a huge fan of Alan Watts. And he said he's the kind of philosopher that spreads Zen and Buddhism and blah, but he's also like kind of nihilist. Like, everything is empty, and like, there's no future or past. Everything is, it's eternal. It's like, and he spoke about love being like, do you remember the cover of The Dark Side of the Moon of Pink Floyd?
Mm.
Like a shine white light going through a prism and spread some colors. And he was speaking about, like, love is this, and it's like from sacred love to lust. There's like many levels of love, and but they're all one. There's no better love, so to speak, if you point it
Mhm.
in that way, point of view. And I know, that there's this unconditional love, but in my opinion, in this moment, that my opinion changes every year. In my way of view, it's like love has to embrace the light and the dark, at least within us. It's not like I want to be the good, and I love the good aspect of me, but the bad I don't. It's like, I think that's one of the best ways of try to heal, because I think many of the trauma that we storage in our body, that we are not able to, it's because at some point someone could tell us that anger was bad, or that sex was bad, and we can start to repress, or art is bad. The dark aspect in the Jung's perspective is not that the dark is bad, it's only hidden, that it's hidden from your conscious mind, and you can find really good treasures. For example, if you stood up as a boy and sung in the restaurant, la 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 la, and then suddenly, hey, no, shut up. and you repressed
Mhm.
your singing side because you thought it was bad. And if you go to your dark aspect and realize that that trauma, it's like a jewel of singing, of art, and you revolve so many concepts, and it's bad and you should do it. And I think that we are capable of just be. That was, for example, the difference that I find between the Jesus and the Buddha path, that they made like a path of the Eightfold Path, like right truth and right words and the blah, 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 how to get to this purified state. But Lao Tse just observed the stars and the flowers. And he said, like, if the stars shine and the flowers bloom, we should be, like right now, we are like equipped with everything we need in the emotions of fear, of anger, of sex, of hunger, of laughter, of love, of massage, of tenderness, of fighting. It's like but I think that this mental prison of concepts uh, doesn't allow us to be in all our wholeness. And I would just want to finish this flow with Jung's way of seeing realization. He said, realization is not perfection, but wholeness. The way to realization is not perfection, but wholeness. You
Mhm.
know, and that's what I've encountered in many teachers or false prophets. They show you one side, and then the dark aspect is like scandals or sexual abuse between shamans or whatever. And it's like the way to perfection, it's, I don't know, it's, I'm in that moment of research, like allowing to be and know that I am, that the thing that I'm looking is not later, but I am now. And
Yeah, I think, yeah.
it's like, I think of the psyche, it's like a hurricane that at the center, like before your identity with your name, with your persona, it's you, you know because I've encountered that moment in silent retreats and in dark room retreats without any substances. And there's this state that I cannot find myself. I cannot find my name, my body, my thoughts. And it's like one process. I am that. I am. It's not like I've read it in a book. I've encountered that space that I cannot find myself, and I am the breath breathing itself, but no, there's no one to breathe. It's just a happening. And it's not two, but it's one, and it's none. And it's before concepts, you know?
Mhm.
And at the end, we are that. And perhaps we, as the divinity, the divine, the eternal, the Alpha, the Omega, decided to play. That's the Hinduists call the game of Lila, that Brahman, the spiritual, like decided to become and separate and forget that he created everything. And at the end, it's like, because why not? It's not why the universe exists. Like, why not? If you were God and you realize that you are one and you are alone, you're alone forever, because you cannot have another you, because you are all, you're it, and you're the none. So what can you do for eons? Fuck, play, like divide yourself and spread in thousands of dimensions, stories, feel love, feel sex, feel pain, like pain and pleasure, they're the same thing, of the extremes. They say like pleasure can lead you to pain, like an addiction, but also pain can lead you to pleasure. There are people that gets off, being, it's it's as always, as it's consent. There's consent between the parts experiencing life. I think it's all, you know and yeah, that was one flow.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Similar to you, I'm in a place now where, especially with my business and my writings, and when I say business, my dharma, for the past few years, I've been operating from a place of fear, from a place of, well, I have to help people, I have to fix people, I have to save people, I have to see the world from this lens of it's broken. And now I'm coming back into the love, which is what woke me up in the first place, was the love for who I am, the love for remembering that I am the self creator, that I created myself, right? That I as a universe, as a product of the universe, self created and self evolved, and coming back into it's almost like the richness and the depth of the experience, the sensation, the sentience of living. And coming into that has brought me back into the magic of the purpose, the magic of the Dharma, because there is a balance, I believe, in terms of what we put out and what we receive, and then the honor to the earth, the honor to the consciousness of the other kingdoms, the plant kingdoms, the animal kingdoms, and helping restore that balance upon the planet as being our dharma, and being the age that we're coming into, which is the sort of the fertilization of all of the descending consciousness into this beautiful rapturous growth that is realized as we support the rise of the kundalini and the reintegration of humanity. And this is actually an important topic for me because I write about it a lot. um, the reintegration with the Earth's planetary logos. So I also do a lot of research into cancer because I had a blood clotting disorder, and I had a hematologist, and I was on blood clot medication, several different types of blood clotting medication for 14 years. And when I healed, when I began to love myself, my body began to function properly. And that's why now I study the organ function. I study the heart function, the different glands, the pituitary glands, the thymus gland, because the body's actually a temple. And how our organs resonate is determined by how we behave, how we speak, the words we say, the frequency of life. And it's that frequency of life that actually then illuminates dormant genetics, dormant genes within our body that then elevates. And because I'm also, and now I'm able to do it without, or I was actually able to do this as a kid, but I was conditioned to suppress those genes. But now I'm able to do it naturally again, but to come back into living in altered states of consciousness. And as an artist, I'm sure you feel this, where like you're in the moment of creation and you're creating with a purpose, right? To support children, to support adults and families, and bring people together, to unite people, to open the imagination. And you feel the flow, something guiding you, the future guiding you, spirit guiding you. um, and that's the love. And so, like when I came to Mexico, for example, I was guided by the kundalini. I was guided by the myth of Quetzalcoatl, the fire serpent. And a lot of the research I do is understanding the power of the planetary kundalini in these megalithic sites, and how these civilizations, in the Hindu Veda, there's a term called samadhi, which is Sanskrit for deliverance, which is reaching a state where we activate the resonance, the higher expression of our genetic expression. And when we do that, we create an open heart grid. There's a power when our hearts connect and then amplify and amplify and amplify as we grow. We actually create this protective field. And that protective field is in unity with the Earth's field and the natural kingdoms, the entire Earth's bioluminescence, the Earth gives off a glow. And so in my work the past couple of years, I've gone clearer insights on the intergalactic I'm sure you're aware of the intergalactic war, the planet, the um, intergalactic federation, but there is a bigger picture. And the Earth, which is a spiritual being, she's a spiritual battery of life force energy, is now freeing herself, liberating herself from extraterrestrial interdimensional forces that have just been feeding off of her for millennia, but also been feeding off of humanity and using humanity to feed off of the natural resources. For example, like we have free energy, right? We also have hydrogen. We have microcellular organisms that can create hydrogen. We create hydrogen within our body, but we're still destroying our mother Earth because we are the spirit of the universe, we're the spirit of the planet. We're still destroying her because we're stuck living in, most people are stuck living in ways that are actually self-detrimental, cancerous. And part of breaking free is coming in is the drive that we all have, all life has, to evolve to the higher state. Because I've experienced this psychically and through my guidance, is that our DNA is an ever unfolding expression, and we activate it as we raise our resonance.
All
And so
right.
that's why part of my lineage is the Vedic, the Hindu Vedic tradition is embodying the teachings of Patanjali and the Yoga Sutras and all the wisdom and knowledge that Yogananda, Paramahansa, and Jesus Christ and the other saints have brought down from, and Krishna have brought down from the consciousness of the star systems to support the earth as she births herself and is able to liberate herself through us and with her support as part of our collective evolution to the other side, to the galactic ascension. And that's where I'm happy I'm speaking about, because I usually get scared because it sounds so outrageous, but the truth is we're living the greatest movie ever. But being able to imagine it requires that or being able to imagine, to hold that level of frequency of thought as a transformative, liberating, spiritual, emancipating process. And that's why I'm so, especially as I'm doing the research into my Mexican heritage, my African heritage, my Indian heritage, leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Francisco Madera and other revolutionaries, Martin Luther King. So, for example, I'm also a spiritual medium. A few months ago, I wrote a piece and I was doing research on Martin Luther King, and it was like, when your intention is to serve humanity and it's an alignment, and you research these great revolutionaries who walked the earth and realized the power of God in them and the holy temple, and you tap into their soul, it's almost overwhelming because our focus, whatever we focus on, they say, if you focus on Buddha, you'll tap into his resonance, whereas if you focus on dark things, you'll tap into that. Like when I do this research and I'm writing my stories and I tap into the consciousness of these great men and women who have walked this earth, and still their spiritual energy still exists, and it's just so overwhelmingly beautiful, and it gives me hope. And with that hope, I have the power to unravel cords. I have the power to dissolve attachments. My spiritual senses open up, and it's painful, and I have to look inwards. I always have to look inwards. And Jesus Christ, he teaches atonement. It's like every day, like I do feel that every day we live to perfect our expression for the realization of the gift of the kingdom. Because as we raise ourselves up, we experience reality on different levels. And that's our goal, is to create, is as a collective organism, is to begin to build societies and have it reform, educational reform, social reform. We're actually operating in unity and love, like as one species, just seamlessly in love with each other, like empowered, almost like when you think of a hive of bees who are synchronized in their formation, in their creation, and are directed by the pheromones of the queen, or ants, and how powerful they are and how they work together seamlessly to build that's evolution. It's us coming together and then realizing this power, because when we're not in fear, we're 10 times more powerful. And then that energy builds and it builds and it builds and it passes on through our genetics and our genes.
I
And then
think
it's like,
that every one of us, like, I totally feel you, brother. I don't know in if in this dimension we will get peace and love like worldwide. I don't know. It could be. It's an option. But I think that, for example, for me, also my healing has been releasing a lot of trauma that I used to blame outside, and I wasn't aware, It was on my
mhm,
unconscious, all my hate to the world, because it was like unsolved issues or trauma inside myself. So I I feel better now, and I am a love person, the like I know I have the ability to damage people. I've been a manipulator, I've harmed other people, but it's like, okay, so I know I can be bad, but I choose good, I choose love, I choose art, creation, support each other, listen, talk. But the thing, I don't know if we will ever in this dimension world know world peace, I remember there was this guy that said, like, world peace will be when three men can look at each other simultaneously. Like three men. So I don't know if it's going to happen, because actually I don't think that trauma is bad, If I had to revise, for example, my traumas, my healings, my personal experiences, that experiences made me this loving and compassionate man, you know perhaps if I hadn't been, abused or whatever, I would have been an abuser, so I think that every one of us have, it's like a way of the saying, like, no moth, no lotus, or the saying that the beautiful smell of a rose depends of the shed that, like, you put shed like abono, we said, and that uses the plant to transmuting into beautiful smell. So that's why I think that trauma or difficulty tend to make us like stronger, and like the wind, in a tree, like you see the tree with these roots like so tight and so straight, but it had to gather some wind and some rain and sun, to be straight and to grow as a tree and be the home for birds and spiders and everything, and make oxygen, and yeah, but I think that true compassion, like, only begins, like, only can arise from experience, from pain, you cannot be, I think that you cannot be good and help people, like, honestly, without any more interesting than to serve, that if you don't come from your own pain, like, your own confusion in your path, your own pain or your psychosis or your drama or whatever, you have to go through that to choose love, like, not choose war, because war is not, it's always been the two, but it's like we can help each other, because life itself, it's painful. Like, you can broke your ankle, or you can hit by a car, or you could get a disease, so you can die, you're lost, you will lose everything and everyone you meet in this human life. But if life it's already hard, why make it harder between ourselves, why we can learn to be loving to one another, like,
mhm.
we can ride each other home, we're going back home, but in the meantime we cannot harm ourselves more than pain you know. But anyhow, I think that we can wrap it up, you know, with I don't know, it was amazing, you know, have this discussion, and it's like this kind of dialogue, you know, it's just sharing ideas, sharing stories, sharing paths. I used to think that I knew, you know, like, oh, you should live like this, and I did a course about astral projection and meditation and art, but I don't anymore. Sometimes I feel like a teacher. I don't feel like a teacher in this moment of my life, but it's like just sharing ideas, you know, ways of point of view, because we are trying to get grasp of this thing that the more I think I know, the less I know. You know, it's weird. The more I know about quantum physics and astrophysics and blah, the less I know. The more I know, I don't know. You know, I solve one question and I solve one question, I have 10 more questions. So yeah, thank you, man, for sharing. I wish you all the best in your projects, in your life, that may you serve a lot of people with all your heart, with everything you've got, you know, each one, even though it's if it's one or if it's thousands, everything you've got. And I know, you know, it's going to take time, but it's the 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 time that it takes you to make you the center. It's like enjoying the ride, no, not just the result, but everything from this moment until you invite me to your opening, you know,
Yes,
the people, the obstacles, you know, enjoy and savor every step of the way, you know.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate this opportunity to speak and share my story, to feel your spirit, your heart, to sense our unity, our oneness, and thank you, Tielo.
Thank you, Amritlal. No, I said it bad.
Amritlal,
Amritlal. Whoa.
Punji.
I'm going to tell you Amri. Is it good?
Okay, that's good, brother. That's good. You say it with love. I love it.
Okay, so the plan is that we're going to stop recording and we're going to upload this without
Let's do it.
editing. Are you in?
Let's do it. I'm in.
Okay, bye bye.